my name is Joyce Gunn. Pardon me. And I am the office manager of the San Luis Valley Museum. And I do a little bit of everything. I do research, I write grants, I put together information sometimes when people ask for it, if I can get my hands on it. Tobin was really a frontiersman. He was a really good friend with Kit Carson. Kit Carson had a son named Billy who was probably dyslexic. And so Tobin actually raised Billy because that way he could be more of a frontiersman. He would have something to fall back on, where books and those things just weren't cutting it. But common sense and getting along in life and being able to provide for family was a necessity, and that's what Tobin taught him. The person that brought it in was Ellie LaBouise, and she is the granddaughter to Kit Carson III. But at the time that he and Kit Carson were here, there's always that ending of one time period and moving into another. And Tobin in some ways was kind of caught with his feet in two different worlds. Life was changing so drastically. What it was in the valley and what it was in northern Colorado were very different. The attitudes, the law and order, the changes that took place so quickly with the Mexican-American War. All of those things, kind of plopped down in a chair and said, here I am, and this is how you're going to disperse me. But nobody really had a good concrete idea of how this was going to affect not the soldiers and not the government, because they'd already made their agreements, but the individual person. It's kind of like that in every war, in every conflict, because somebody has to give up something. And in the Mexican-American War, they had to give up part of what they felt was their country. And they really didn't want to let it go.
And that's where the Espinosa brothers came in.
Yeah, because they were settled here in the valley. And they actually were the first serial killers in the United States as well as Colorado. But if you understand their story, it was like, okay, I probably would have done that and probably done more. They lost their country. Their land was not recognized as theirs, and so it was given to an Anglo. They owed the shopkeepers, and because they'd lost their land and couldn't make a living, they had to sell their personal property to cover their debt. And then the Archbishop came in from France and said, if you were blessed, married, or buried by a penitente, the church will not recognize it. So what else is there to lose? So the little Anglo guy moves onto their property and into their house, and they kill him. And they did go on to kill many. And some people say it was 27, some people say it was, less than that. Some people say that their father had a dream and it was supposed to be 50. But when they went up by Leadville, there were too many mines and too many big ranches. And that's where they sent posses after him and forced him to come back. And that's when Tobin got involved, because the federal government actually hired him to go get them, dead or alive. And they find him, and they almost lost him because Tobin himself stepped on a stick and broke it and alerted them to the fact that there were people there. But the story is that they killed him, and to prove that they were dead, he cut off their heads, put them in a knapsack, brought them back down to Fort Garland, and rolled them across the floor of the commandant. I think the one interesting thing about Tobin that most people don't know is that the government gave him $1,500, but they never gave him the last 1,000. But he and his wife helped to support Felipe and Juan's and Vivian's families until the boys got old enough, to really be helpful because they had large families. And so Tobin and his wife always made sure that they had food on the table. And what makes us humane and what makes us learn from history is not necessarily just the fact, but the story behind the fact. Sometimes understanding their story shows you the relationship to your own story and shows you that, gee, we're not all that different.